Let's talk about Star Wars. Welcome to my first video in my Star Wars review series where I will be looking at anything and everything Star Wars. If it's a movie, television show, or video game, if it is Star Wars, I'm going to talk about it here. But first off, happy May the 4th, a day to celebrate Star Wars, the perfect day to release the final episode of Clone Wars Season 7, the first episode in the Mandalorian documentary series, and The Rise of Skywalker, all on Disney+. I thought today would be the perfect time to kick off this series by reviewing Clone Wars Season 7, the final season of Clone Wars. This was a fantastic series, and I can't believe that it's over. Instead of starting at the beginning with Phantom Menace or A New Hope, I thought I would take a page out of George Lucas's book and start right in the middle of the action with the final season of the Clone Wars. Because today, we finally got the conclusion we've been longing for since Disney bought Star Wars and canceled the series. We were absolutely devastated when that happened. We were going to have multiple more seasons, and season 5 ended off with this big cliffhanger, sort of, and we were super excited to see where it was going, and then it just was gone. We got the Lost Missions, season 6 on Netflix, some point after that, but that still wasn't an ending. But Dave Filoni, George Lucas, Disney, they finally brought it to us. We finally got the conclusion we deserved. When the series was canceled, I researched everything that I possibly could find, concept art, interviews with Dave Filoni, George Lucas, anything I can get my hands on to tell me how this show was supposed to continue. And all of the stuff I found, all of the things I could imagine in my head, the best case scenarios, still couldn't prepare me for how great this season was going to be. I will never forget the day that I found out that Clone Wars was coming back for another season. I was walking around in Party City, and two of my friends sent me a link to the trailer, pretty much around at the same time. And I freaked out right there in the middle of the aisle. I was just brink of tears. My smile was just, I was so happy. The 13-year-old inside of me was just blown away that we're finally going to get the ending to this show. And I'm super excited to talk about it. But enough talk about that. Let's get into the review. Now, I'm going to try my best to keep it as brief as possible, where it's not spoilers for people who've never seen the show, and it's not filled with spoilers for people who haven't seen this season. But there might be minor references to things that have happened throughout the past 6 seasons, so just be prepared for that. But Season 7 was 3 separate arcs and ran for 12 episodes. The first arc followed the Clone Force Bad Batch, which were a group of outcast clones who weren't genetically pure to the DNA of Jango Fett. And being outcasts, they form their own group and kind of go on missions together. Well, in this four-part arc, we get to see them team up with Anakin Skywalker and Captain Rex and a few others. I really enjoyed this arc. I was super excited to finally get to see this group of soldiers. I love the characters. I loved the callbacks to past clones and past moments throughout the series, so that was really awesome. But I definitely feel like it was stretched out a little too long. 4 episodes for this arc was just too much. At the most, it should have been 2 episodes. I definitely missed the times of when we used to have, Season 1 back in the day was almost entirely separate episodes with a couple arcs in there, but they were separate adventures within each episode, and I missed that. I do enjoy having the story be 4 episodes long, 3 episodes long, so we can really get a thorough story, but I think this one went on for a little too long, and with this season only being 12 episodes, I wanted every second to count. This arc did set up multiple different things for Revenge of the Sith, much like the rest of this season, so everything can really come together nicely. Now, for the second arc, it's definitely the weakest out of the three for this season, but it's still very important to this season, to the whole series in general, and in Revenge of the Sith. The second arc follows Ahsoka in the lower levels of Coruscant, and she meets Rafa and Trace, two people who have been living under the rule of the Jedi Order. This set of episodes gives us a perspective of normal people living on Coruscant and how they view the Jedi Order. And it shows how the people have lost faith in the Jedi Order, which is setting up Revenge of the Sith. These set of episodes continued where the story had left off for Ahsoka at the end of season 5, which is definitely important for her story and setting up for the rest of the season, because now we're getting to the good stuff. So this final arc, it's going to be difficult to talk about without spoilers, so I'm going to try to be as brief as possible. The final arc of this season is the main event of this season and the series. This has been built up for years, and we finally get to see it come to life. These 4 episodes are some of the best in this entire series. Hands down, the best. The first episode is titled Old Friends Not Forgotten, which is a great title for what this episode has in store for you. We get to see many callbacks to the Clone Wars movie, which is just the beginning of nostalgia and emotions these episodes are going to have. Minor spoilers, so if you don't want anything, kind of skip this part, but we get to see Ahsoka and Anakin's final interaction with one another, which is a very touching scene between her and Anakin, and between her and Rex and her clones, and her and Obi-Wan. It's just a great scene. Okay, so it's their final interactions because this starts to intertwine with Revenge of the Sith. This final arc, most of it is happening while Revenge of the Sith is happening, which is a great way to end this series because it's ending the Clone Wars, which this whole show is about. So it's how the show should have ended. And it casts a different perspective on the events of Revenge of the Sith, which is awesome because you definitely get shook by certain events, and it answers a lot of questions of Revenge of the Sith and really helps tell that story even better. And by connecting the Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith together in an even closer way. They did an amazing job connecting everything together. The second episode of the arc is called The Phantom Apprentice, where we get to be reunited with Darth Maul, and we get to see his conclusion to his arc that has been playing out throughout this series. Throughout these 4 episodes, we get a lot of elements to Rogue One, Solo: A Star Wars Story, and Star Wars Rebels, which really helps to connect everything together. During this episode, we get one of the greatest lightsaber fights in the series and in Star Wars as a whole. Hands down. Trust me. If you watched all 6 seasons of Clone Wars and then you watch the final season with this lightsaber fight, you'll agree with me. And it's not just because of how significant this fight is, the visuals also. They did this fight with motion capture, which means that they had actual people wearing those like all black suits with like the lights all over it, and they act out how the characters will be during the scenes, which just made it 10 times better. And they had some of the greatest CGI visuals to add on to that, which just makes it amazing. It was just absolutely gorgeous to look at. It looked like a video game cinematic trailer, but even better. Everything that has happened to these 2 characters throughout this series has been building up to this moment. All of the elements of their characters growing and developing throughout this series plays a part in this fight, and it's absolutely beautiful. And in the words of Darth Maul, every choice made has led you to this. Okay, so I know a lot of people have probably had this problem with Disney Plus, where it keeps phrasing, and it's annoying, but like it's a new streaming service, so like I understand. But it froze in the middle of this episode, and like I have to like rewind it so it can fix itself and play. But like I didn't have a problem with it because that means I got to watch this lightsaber fight again, and it was totally worth it. It was an amazing rewatch. The final two episodes of the series kind of go hand in hand, and they're definitely going to be the hardest to talk about without giving away spoilers. So I'm going to be super brief about these two episodes. But what I want to talk about is how the Clone Wars series as a whole has focused on delving into what's behind the helmet of clones. In Attack of the Clones Revenge of the Sith, there really isn't, like, they're just soldiers. I'm pretty sure almost all of them are just CGI. So, like, you really didn't, like, they're just, you pretty much can see them just like battle droids, pretty much. But this series definitely focused on making them people, making them human, having motivations and emotions and connections and relationships with one another. And that plays a big part throughout this series and a big part in this season and in this last arc. But all I really have to say is you're going to be shook by these episodes. And you're going to. It's just an absolutely beautiful way of ending this series. It's visually stunning, it's emotional, it's just great storytelling. And this is how you end a series off. You've built these characters up and you've built this story up, and we knew where Revenge of the Sith was in the timeline, and we knew that we were building up to that place and time. And I think they did a great job of connecting everything and making these characters in this story even better than they were before. Great ending. It just had amazing depth. It's just, I'm going to be thinking about this. Whew. But enough talking about it. Definitely go check it out. It's definitely worth giving a shot. Go watch all 7 seasons of the Clone Wars. They're all streaming on Disney Plus. But if you are someone who hasn't seen any of the seasons of Clone Wars, I hope that you go and give this series a shot. It's definitely worth it. It's a great show to help tell George Lucas's story of Star Wars. It just brings so much to the overall story of Anakin Skywalker and all of these characters into the Skywalker saga as a whole. It just really helps tell this story, because Star Wars at the heart of it is about the story of Anakin Skywalker. So this is just helping build up his tragic character. But go check it out, and may the Force be with you always.